The hour is 3 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, July 7th Fargo Planning Commission meeting. And I'd like to take privilege right now and welcome Arlette Preston, who has got oversight of our planning commission. So welcome, new commissioner. Welcome to the meeting. All right, we have nothing continued, so I'd look for approval of the order of agenda.
So moved.
I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Everybody, this is just a voice vote, so all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And also, before we go any further, I'd like to welcome our newest Park Board Commissioner, Dawn Morgan. Congratulations, Dawn.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on. If you've had a chance to look at the minutes of the June 2nd meeting, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Sterling, second.
All right, thank you, Mary. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, I heard two ayes, but I see ayes. Motion carries. Just give me a thumbs up. There is no brown bag luncheon this month. So, moving on to public hearing items. Moving on to item number 1. Continued the hearing on an application requesting a conditional use permit to allow an alternative access plan on a portion of Lot 1, Block 2, Austin subdivision. Kylie.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Item number 1 is titled Austin Subdivision and is located at 5451 53rd Street South. The applicant, Chris Schuler, is requesting a conditional use permit for an alternative access plan for a parking reduction. The applicant is requesting to reduce the parking from the required 87 parking stalls to 44 parking stalls for a hockey practice facility. The Land Development Code requires the hockey facility to provide 1 parking stall per 250 square feet. The applicant has provided a parking study by KLJ, which shows 44 parking stalls will be sufficient. The hockey rink will be used as a practice facility, and the owner anticipates that there will be no more than 30 people at the facility at one time. Staff has received general inquiries regarding this application from surrounding property owners, but they don't have any issues with it at this time. Based on the conditional use permit criteria, staff is recommending approval with the conditions that were listed in your packet. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kylie?
This is Dawn Morgan. It appears that the surrounding land uses, there's a delay. Anyway, the question is this: since it's in a commercial area, is there street parking that's available in case it's needed?
I'm sorry, Don, can you repeat that question?
I think I got
Sure.
I got it, Don. If it's in a commercial area, is there street parking available if needed?
I believe on this area there's parking available on one side of the street.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I invite the applicant to speak. Not
They might not be on there.
Might not be on, okay. I'll open it to public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak for or against this application? Can you step up to that podium on that side, please, and introduce yourself?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Sherry Furco. I represent the Fargo Moorhead Heritage Society. I just had a question as regards to landscaping. Is there a landscaping part of this plan?
Yes, so they did receive a building permit for this, and as part of that, they did have to meet all the landscaping requirement in the land development code.
Is it a part of the application? So is it in the blueprint?
Yeah, it's part of the building permit that has been approved.
Is there a blueprint that you can view right now?
I don't think we have one that I could pull up right now because it was with the building permit, so it's hasn't been packetized and it hasn't been digitally uploaded into our computer yet. I have a paper copy if you'd like to see it in our offices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion, or are you ready to act, commissioners?
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
I do not think there is any parking allowed on this street. It is just a rural section. To answer Don's question.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Art Rosenberg, I have a question for Kylie. Do we look at the picture of what's going on when we do this parking issue? How come we don't see the design of the building? You know, like is there seating in there?
So, from what I was told by the owner, there is not seating in there. That's something I can get for you if you would like to see. I don't have that.
Well, I guess it's just more of a question globally. Do we do this every time when we do parking? Do we not look at what's going in there and we trust that the applicant is telling us the truth?
So I think in this case, I did go off of what the applicant did say, is that there would be no parking or no seating in the facility, but that's definitely something I can ask for in writing from the owners moving forward.
And how do you protect going forward if they change something changes and then all of a sudden there's parking problems?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
What happens if it changes some way and now we have parking problems? What's the clawback?
So if they were to change the size of their facility, then they would have to come back in for another conditional
Not
use.
the size. Not the size, the use, the internal use.
The use?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they would have to come back in if they changed the land use from a practice facility. That's one of the conditions that we made as part of this application.
Okay.
Nicole, did you have a comment?
John Morgan.
Yeah, I think
I
Mark
just
and I were-
wanted to mention that this is a business, is that right? It's not funded by public resources.
It's a private
Facility, that's correct.
facility.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Gunkelman, I was just going to mention, I think Mark was getting ready to probably say the same thing. As a alternative access plan, parking standard, and then the parking study, all of those things are brought into consideration. In answer to Ms. Furco's question too, as maybe just to kind of add to Kylie's testimony, There's a site plan permit process that is administrative, and as well as Mr. Rosenberg's process, there's an administrative component that goes with the Planning Commission review. And as Kylie was mentioning, that's already happening or happened. And so this is this is really just to talk about parking. And in answer to Mr. Rosenberg's, anybody that requires a change of use, anytime there's a change, it requires a permit to review through inspections and through the planning department. You don't, as planning commissioner, see those applications. It comes just as an administrative component.
Okay, any other points to clarify this for anyone? All right, do I have a motion?
This is Dawn Morgan. I'd like to make a motion to accept the findings and recommendation of staff and hereby move to approve the conditional use permit.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
This is Scott. I will second it.
Thank you, Scott. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mary Sherling,
Yes.
Miranda Tassa,
Yes.
Don Morgan,
Yes.
Scott Stoffren,
Yes.
Art Rosenberg,
Yes.
Rocky Schneider,
Yes.
John Gunkelman.
Yes, motion carries.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
John?
Yes,
Dawn Morgan. There's really a lot of reverberation. I wonder if people are turning off their microphones.
could we please get everybody to mute their phones when they're not speaking, please? Thank you, that might clean things up a bit. All right, item 2A, continued hearing on the application requesting a PUD, planned unit development master land use plan within the boundaries of the Touchmark addition. Donald, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. This Touchmark addition may look familiar to you. We did look at this at the May meeting. We took a general overview of this project. At the time, there were some details that the applicant was still working on, and we thought that we would just continue this until they were ready with those details instead of having to come back and modify the PUD. This location, you're probably familiar with the Touchmark Continuing Care Community. This is here on South University Drive between Harwood Drive and 35th Avenue South. It's currently zoned MR3, multi-dwelling residential. It has a planned unit development that is a PUD from the 1990s. They did PUDs differently then, without the detail and the analysis that we do now. So one of the reasons they're doing this is to update their PUD to the current standards. As you see, there is one piece of property in this zoned agricultural. This is recently acquired by the Touchmark Corporation there, and that part will also be zoned to MR3, so the entire property will be consistently zoned. Here's that location again, extensive building here, an open area here. As you'll see on the site plans, or the plans going forward, part of this is going to be demolished here, and then the new building going to be extended. This existing residence that was the ag property will be removed. And there'll also be some landscaping in this area distributed in there. So there are three things to this. There is a zone change to MR3 with the new PUD, planned unit development. There is a master land use plan that goes with that planned unit development. And there's an actual plat that mainly just enlarges the existing property. So we'll look at those. Here's some recent photographs. It's tough to get a close-up view of this from the street, but this is standing across South University Drive, just looking down the long length of that property here. And this is from across University Drive Just taking a picture of the undeveloped area here. Just to give you what that looks like on the ground there. This is the plat. Again, we see that it's just adding this piece down here and part 2 of the plat. This is the master land use plan. In north is at the top, so you can see there, this is the existing building outlined here. That's going to get demolished. This is all going to be new here. Continue on down to here.
Right back. Working on the issue.
That's not me, sir.
Somebody needs to mute their phone.
So it's
Bruce.
medium market space new to the city. It is on the public property, it looks like.
Thank you, Commissioner. So as you see, the property is going to be expanded here. The point of the planned unit development on this property, Commissioners, is it's, especially now, is that it's filled up in here. They're going to do some expansion, and in a moment we're going to look at the things they'll be requesting to modify with the PUD. None of the changes are very extreme, but they're just trying to be able to keep this continuing care community going, expand the services that they offer, and still meet requirements for development standards. So this is the chart that's in your packet. Again, slightly increasing the density, slightly increasing the building coverage over what the MR3 allows, slightly decreasing the open space. The explanations for these are included here. The parking here is broken down in a little more detail than normally because there are 3 levels of care here: the assisted living, the independent living, and the memory care. And the explanation for proposed modifications of the standard MR3 parking, that's not me either, sir, is explained in the notes. We did have this, there's a parking plan included in your packet, and we did have that reviewed by our traffic engineer, Jeremy Gordon, and as we do with all parking studies, and he believed that the proposed modifications of parking were reasonable. So we have that support for that. And then the landscaping here is largely a redistribution of the plants. It's the same number of plants that would be required for the standard landscaping, but just because the property here, the frontage of the property, this was built before the current LDC was in place. There was not this landscaping requirement at the time. And so their road here is right up on the property line. So it would be tough to get the entire required 70% of the landscaping along the front here. So they will redistribute it as close to the front as they can because otherwise they have to really basically tear the whole building up to do that. So again, same number of plants. A lot of them will go down here. There's some trees out there that I believe will get replaced. And the applicant's representative, Brian Pattengale from Houston Engineering, is with us this afternoon. He can provide some more details if any commissioners have questions. So that covers the proposed modifications in the PUD. And there's that parking plan again here. They actually have quite a bit of parking again with their proposed modifications. They have quite a bit of parking, actually, some excess for staff and visitor parking, which we do not have a requirement for this use. And so staff's recommendation is stated on this screen as well as stated in your staff report. And again, the applicant, Representative Brian Pattengale of Houston Engineering, is with us this afternoon. If you commissioners have any questions, we did not receive any public comment on this. We did get one question, I believe, from the person who owns the remaining house there on the corner of 35th. They did call him back, and we didn't really have any further conversation. So that concludes staff's presentation, commissioners. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Donald? Seeing no questions for Donald. I invite the applicant to speak. Brian, you got any comments on this?
Good afternoon, commissioners. No, this is pretty straightforward. Donald did a great job explaining the general class of the project. Apparently my camera's still off. Where am I?
You're on.
Anyways, as the Donald explained, we sort of have got the expansion of the existing facility to the south on that vacant portion of the property. They did purchase the adjacent property, and that's basically to accommodate this new addition, which includes independent limited memory care. So, like I said, we're basically updating the existing PUD to sort of bring it into compliance with the current one, and then change the zoning of that one small parcel that's unplatted.
All right. Any questions for Brian, commissioners?
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Rocky. Do you think it's possible to take a 10-minute break and see if AV team can fix this? I can't hear anything you said.
And we can't hear you very well, Rocky, either.
I'd like to say that it's impossible to interpret what's being said.
Do we want to take a couple minute pause here and see if we can figure out what's going on with?
Yes.
Let's take a 2-minute break here and see if we can figure out what's going on with our sound.
Thank you, sir.
We are going to, due to technical difficulties, it's fun to have to say that, we're going to try to continue this meeting to noon tomorrow. So if one by one you could tell us if you can make noon tomorrow, and we'll do it in person here with social distancing. We'll have it at City Hall tomorrow at noon to continue this public hearing. And we will probably do the LDC session at a later date. So one by one, if I can call off names on the screen that I see. And I'll start with Miranda, you're front and center. Can you make it tomorrow at noon?
I can do the roll call for you, John.
Okay, you want to do it?
So, Tasa?
Yes.
Holtz? Jennifer Holtz? She's still there or not?
Jennifer,
I think she logged off.
she's on screen. Can you make tomorrow noon?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay.
Art Rosenberg?
No.
Don Morgan?
Yes.
Scott Stoffren?
No.
Oh, we're probably in
Rocky Schneider?
Yep, I can make noon.
Mary Sherling?
Sorry, no.
John?
I can make it.
That's only 4.
We do not have a quorum for noon tomorrow? Okay, what's that
Unless
game?
Melissa Sobolik can make it, and she's not on right now.
I can do virtual tomorrow if you got this working.
What we can do for those that can't be in person is give you a call number, but for the public, we'll need them to show in person. And so otherwise, to have it a true public hearing, we need to make it accessible for the public.
Right.
And so if those that couldn't attend could participate by phone and see a video of the presentation, we can do that technologically.
All right,
So with Mary, then we would have a quorum with Mary participating virtually.
Okay. So we will be scheduled here tomorrow at noon. And
That's a lot of pressure.
Pardon me?
I said that's a lot of pressure.
And bearing technical difficulties, the agenda items are pretty straightforward. So I would say hour and a half.
So, Mr. Chairman, Eric Johnson here for everybody. You were polling everyone as to who can make it, but yet you'll still need to take a motion and have a second and a call of the roll in order to continue the meeting
till tomorrow.
To tomorrow at noon for purposes of not needing to renotice the meeting
Okay.
and all of the hearings, whatever they are.
Can I have a motion from one of the commissioners to extend the meeting till tomorrow at noon?
This is Dawn. I'll make a motion to extend the meeting until tomorrow.
Okay, and can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't think we need any discussion, or do we have any? No. It'll be a roll call vote. Please call the roll.
Don Morgan,
Yes.
Jennifer Holtz,
Yes.
Mary Sherling,
Yes.
Scott Stoffren,
Yes.
Miranda Tassa,
Yes.
Rocky Schneider,
Yes.
Art Rosenberg,
Yes.
John Gunkelman.
Yes, motion carries. So we will be in the chambers tomorrow at noon. They will spread us out, and I'll finally have some friends back here. So otherwise, I'll adjourn the meeting till tomorrow at noon. Thank you for your patience. Whenever. All right, everybody, we'll resume yesterday's meeting of the July 8th now Planning Commission meeting. And just so everybody knows, item 1 yesterday was heard and approved, and we will pick up with item 2, A, B, and C. And Donald's going to give us just a little recap, and then we'll get back in the discussion on item 2A on the Touchmark project.
And then there was one more. No, there's. Oh, you took care of that. Okay, took care of that. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Donald Kress from the Department of Planning and Development. As the chairman has stated, we were going through the Touchmark edition yesterday, which was a plat, zone change plan, unit development, master land use plan on the Touchmark property here on South University Drive, between Harwood Drive and 35th Avenue South. We had completed our presentation there, which included looking at the plat, which just adds one more property to that, and the the master land use plan, which indicates where the new building will be added. We looked at the features of the planned unit development. This is the chart that's in your packet. The modifications proposed to the development standards, which, again, all staff has reviewed and found no objection to, and our traffic engineer, Jeremy Gordon, has reviewed the proposed parking changes, and he feels those are reasonable. There's a parking plan, and we had put forth the staff recommendation. Mr. Brian Pattengale from Houston Engineering is with us in person, live here today for the first time in a few months. And I believe, Chairman Gunkelman, that you were to the point where you were asking if commissioners had any questions for staff, and then see if the applicant had any comments.
I think we could let Brian maybe just refresh everybody, being that it was his presentation that took us off course yesterday.
I broke it yesterday.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, Don did an excellent job explaining this. They're proposing a new addition to the existing facility to sort of expand their care offerings as far as more units in the facility. They purchased one of the small residential lots next door to accommodate them. So essentially, this is more of a cleanup with the plat and the PUD and stuff. They're basically just taking what's there and bringing it up to current standards as far as the PUD goes. And then obviously that plat, we're zoning that one parcel. It's a oddity, as it's unzoned ag. It's been that way since its incorporation. The city's grown around it. So we're just sort of cleaning up a few things to accommodate the project.
Any questions for Brian? I know. Couldn't remember if you had a question or this all started when you couldn't understand.
I don't have a question.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this project? See none? Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm
Yes.
Sherry Fargo. I just had a question as far as why has it been rezoning the ag for the Touchmark area? Why has it been that since the beginning, and why do they want to change it?
I can take that.
I'll
one,
let
Sue,
you,
if
Donald.
If you'd like. So, ma'am, here's the situation. That, if you can see this, and see if I'm smart enough to do what I want to do here. Okay. So, ma'am, pretend this dark black line is not right here, looking at the screen. So this lot here is a single-family residence that is not was not part of Touchmark when it was created. So the Touchmark people have now bought this property, and they're going to expand their property to include it. That property has been zoned agricultural, which it probably was, as Mr. Pattengale indicated, when it was annexed into the city some years ago, and it was just never changed at the time. So to make it match what they're going to do, they have to zone it to what the zoning on their other property is going to be. There are a few pieces of ag floating around the city in different places, again, left over from the time they were annexed, and they've just never been developed or never had a reason to change their zones.
Why does it have to be changed?
So it matches what they're doing on the property.
Are there residents around that plat right now?
Well, yes, so they've, Mr. Pattengale, they bought this, is there anyone living there, do you know? I don't believe anyone's. Okay, so that's been bought out. There is one resident who lives here, and then these people here, although not included in this PUD, are also part of the Touchmark community. This is Eagles Elementary School. These are commercial properties. This is Courts Plus across the street here. There's some residences here, as you see, some apartment buildings. And then just to give you hang on here, go back. So you can see this zoning here is also the MR3 multi-dwelling, just like here. This is commercial to the north, and this is public institutional. That's a school. That's Eagles Elementary School.
I guess I'm just asking Mr. Gress, because what about the residential protection standards? Are you including that in this proposal?
Well, that's a function of that operates in the LDC. So when they come to do the site plan, they will have to, if there are any, they will have to do that. Although since this is residential to residential, I don't believe there are going to be any. But that is something that's done at site plan review. That just gets done automatically. That they're not proposing to change those. Wait, hang on here. Yeah.
And isn't there a grove of trees, kind of like a little area by that currently? Are they going to be keeping those trees?
We'll turn that one over to the applicant's representative.
In response to the residential protection standards, we have reviewed those, and our comport area, the master plan is taking those into account. I believe we're required to, because that one lot next door is zoned ag, we are required to assume that's an SR zoning with an MR zoning next to it, so we would be required to provide that residential protection buffer on that sort of southwest corner of our property, and that is taken into account. Mainly that's a planning buffer, and then it affects building heights as well, which we have taken into account in the preliminary building designs. Unfortunately, yes, that grove of trees will be, majority of that will be removed for the building expansions. That's primarily where the new addition will go.
Okay. And you have proposed no modification of the residential protection standards in your PUD?
That is correct. There's no
So you'll follow them as stated in the Land Development Code. Thank you, Brian.
All right. No one else from the public wish to comment? I will close the public hearing. Any additional discussion, or are we ready to act? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion as outlined in the staff report to accept the findings.
I have a motion and I need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Schneider,
Aye.
Sherling,
Yes.
Morgan,
Aye.
Tassa. Aye. Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item 3A. Hearing an application on a zoning change from SR4, single dwelling residential and PI public institutional to SR4, single dwelling residential, PI public institutional, and MR1, multi-dwelling residential on the proposed Madeline's Meadows third edition. Donald, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. I just have to ask, Mr. Eunice, the project representative, was going to be here in person. Is he on the phone? John, are you on the phone? Okay, hopefully he'll be showing up here shortly. So this is what we unofficially call a fix-up plat here in the Madeline's Meadows additions here, which were approved here within the last couple of years. Just the location, this is 25th Street South, this is 70th Avenue South, Davies High School, Drain 53 coming down here. And these are residential subdivisions. So the current zoning here is, let's get the visual. These are undeveloped lots here. This is the Golden Valley area, Golden Valley 1, 2, 3. Again, those were recently approved by your commission, or 2, 3, and 4 were rather. So the existing lots here, these are the SR4 lots, and this is the PI zoning. So these are as yet undeveloped single-family residential lots. This is where there is a detention basin and Fargo Park District Park, and this is where the MR1 zoning is going to happen here. We'll talk about that in a moment. So this is a plat that was actually done largely at the request of the city and the Fargo Park District to fix a few things here. These lots here, these residential lots, are going to get 8 feet shorter, and they are that 8 feet is going to be dedicated as right-of-way for 72nd Avenue South so that it matches in width, and so utilities can be aligned with the existing 72nd. So their zoning isn't changing. You know, otherwise their lot dimensions are not changing. They'll still meet the minimum required lot area, and they'll be right along. So that's just a dedication plat for this. Another thing that's changing is this lot line here is going to be moved. So it's about 45 degrees now. It's going to be moved till it's about 90 degrees over here because this pond has gotten larger. And in your staff report there's a graphic from our engineering department that shows the pond has gotten bigger. So we're just making that area larger. So again, that is a public park that continues between Golden Valley and Madeline's Meadows. It's owned by the Fargo Park District. And then this area here, there we go, which is currently zoned PI. This was zoned as the PI with the public and institutional zoning at the time that it was originally platted as a holding zone that was always intended to be developed with residential. And so that's where the MR1 zoning is going to go. Here's some site photos taken yesterday. Here we're standing on 26. That's what undeveloped lots look like, a row of undeveloped lots there. And then this is just looking down 73rd. That's the I-29 out there. Not a lot to look at, but there is activity going on out there. So again, this shows what I was just explaining here. This zoning remains SR4, this zoning remains PI, and this zoning change will change from PR to MR1, which is a multi-dwelling residential district. It's our lowest density multi-dwelling residential district of 16 dwelling units per acre. And then actually another modification, which we recently negotiated with the applicant, was to dedicate additional right-of-way for 73rd Avenue South for a future crossing of Drain 53. They're not required to build the drain crossing, but we did need the right-of-way. As commissioners who have been on this commission for some time know, the number of drain crossings along in this area has been a matter of discussion for some time. So the potential for a drain crossing at 64th or 67th Avenue North was included in one of the Golden Valley plats. And then partly due to work that the city and the Southeast Cass Water Resources District is doing with Drain 53, it makes more sense to have another drain crossing here than farther south. So again, they're just dedicating right away at the request of the city of Fargo. That's what the plat looks like without the zoning on it. That's page 2 of the plat there. And that is staff's recommendation. We will note is included in your packet. We did get one letter of comment that's included in your packet there. And we did get one phone call, talked to the caller there, explained what was going on. We did not get a letter from that person. And the applicant's Representative John Eunice. Yes. Oh, he is on the phone. Okay, thank you. Is available on the phone from Eagle Ridge Development, and he may have some additional comments for you.
Okay. First of all, any questions for Donald?
I have a question. When we have, so normally the notice goes out to 300 feet,
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody lives there. So how is this different in all this green space and when it's not developed? Because I assume it went out to probably very few homes based on.
Well, yes. So what we do this with our GIS does this for us pretty much automatically. We lay out this boundary and it counts out 300 feet around it. And so all property owners within that 300 feet get a notice. Now, so one doesn't get sent to every one of these individual lots because the developer owns them all. Yeah, so the surrounding property owners would get it. So yes, those areas are undeveloped, but that's what our protocol is. We are not able to just change that by our own discrimination. We would have to have an ordinance change that would change that.
Yeah, and I, living in this area, there's not much being developed at all. And so when I look at South Fargo by Davies, does the 300 feet, when we're looking at green space, it's probably not touching very many homes at all, so the notice does not go out. What we have enforced in North Fargo probably is not the same in the Davies residence because of the green space. I don't think it's a big change, but I do think that we maybe need to look at how far it goes out because there's just not many residents.
So your point being that if you measure, for instance, here, if you go 300 feet this way, a lot of it is drain and park and so on where nobody lives.
And nobody lives there.
Yes,
right.
I understand your point.
Right. Maybe that Golden Valley might be hit, but it's all being developed. So there's not very many homeowners in that area right now.
Yeah. And again, our ordinance, which is based on state law, prescribes the distance that we have to go out. We can't change that arbitrarily for complex reasons, but it becomes a selective thing and we're not allowed to do that. We have to follow the ordinance. But something to think about for the LDC discussion.
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to say I think it is an issue that's being discussed by the LDC. One of the reasons being that even in more densely settled areas, 300 feet doesn't go very far, where something might affect an entire neighborhood. So that discussion is ongoing, and hopefully that'll be expanded.
Perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Any other questions for Donald?
I have a question if that's right. Thanks, Donald. I just have a question on the park and the bike path that goes along the park.
Yes.
Does that get extended into this development?
Okay, so there's a bike path that goes along here that will be part of this. John, can you hear me here? Can you tell us a little more on that bike path?
Yeah, that actually is the connection around the pond is actually happening right now. There's an improvement district already out there. Okay. So there would be a trail connection that kind of follows that levee and eventually would tie in with a long-term plan of some sort of trail system along the levee.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yep.
John, as long as you're on, we might as well move to you. Any other comments on the application? John, did you hear me?
Yeah, I did. I didn't know. None on my side. Unless you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Any other questions for John?
I'd just like to ask a question. So from what I understand, whenever there's a new development underway, that there is a certain amount of green space that's set aside for parks, and then that is managed and owned by the Park District. And that would be incorporated into Madeline's Meadows, I assume.
Yes, ma'am. When the park.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, yeah. So one thing I want to point out is that we're going to be submitting in our next phase of Madeline's Meadows, and within that phase, there's going to be additional park dedication for a playground for the Madeline's Meadows area as well, in addition to all the trail connections.
That's to the south, John, right?
Yep, south of 73rd Avenue.
So that'd be this next phase here, ma'am.
Thank you.
And if I just may add for the commissioners and the public's knowledge, we have an extensive pre-development process where we meet with the applicant and their engineers and so on, well before they even submit it, and months to a year before your commission sees it. And all our adjacent all our related jurisdictions, including the Fargo Park District, are very much a part of that. They're part of our regular meeting, and planning department and the Park District staff have a regular monthly meeting to discuss issues on which we overlap. So we have real good communication with them, and we appreciate their cooperation with us. They do. We have a good working relationship.
All right. I'll open up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this application?
I'd like to comment on this application. You probably won't listen to me because I don't think you listen to the people and what they want in the neighborhoods. I'm going to tell you about where I live. I live in Rose Creek, and I've lived there now for 15 years, and it's protected by an association, so there cannot be developers going in there with commercial or apartments or multi-dwellings. I live there because it's peaceful, and the investments of our neighborhood is protected, and the properties values are protected, and we are a #1 neighborhood in the state. I just want to, I guess, ask, do you think about what other people want in the neighborhood and what their concerns are and what their wants and needs are before you rezone an area where it should be for single homes and single instead of having it multi-dwellings? I guess I want to know, is this going to be a place where you're going to place apartments?
Do you want me? Well, so let me answer that question this way. We'll ask Mr. Eunice in a moment to talk about what his MR1 structure looks like. In response to your general comments, we go through there's an application process that's laid out in state law and in our city ordinances, the Land Development Code, and we follow that. So the city does not originate these projects. These are originated by developers who own the land, who go through an application process they are entitled by law to do, and we are required by law to take them through that process and evaluate it. We have to evaluate what they propose based on our ordinance. And that's where, when you see staff recommendation, that's where that comes from. There's numerous departments that review this: planning, engineering, inspections, public works, city attorney, review these things. It's up to the planning commission to make a recommendation to the city commission, up to the city commission to make a final decision. The notification process, which includes not only notification to surrounding owners, but also notification in the forum once a week for 2 weeks prior to the hearing date, not counting the hearing date as a date. And so that is the notification process to the owners of the surrounding owners of what's going on. In a couple cases, at least one in the last year, we had a situation where the surrounding owners were notified, and they did come before your commission and the city commission, and the proposed zone change was voted down. And so that is the public participation process. That's how that works. So, but, we don't have, generally the authority as a city to say, we're not taking your application. We don't like that. We can't make a decision like that. There's a due process element to this that our city attorney can explain much better than I, because I'm not an attorney, that we have to follow. And I don't know. Mark, do you have any further comment?
To add to that, to help maybe bring a little bit more clarification, in 2005, 2006, we went through extensive process that created the 2007 growth plan. Granted, it's getting a little outdated because a lot of that land that it talked about has been consumed. In that growth plan, that there was a large outreach process to try identifying where and what our city should grow into. And if you turn to page 2 of the report, you will see a little bit of a snippet of how this proposal matches with the growth plan that was approved in 2007. And that growth plan sort of sets the stage for us to be able to see if we're going to support an application or not support an application. And if there's any deviation from that growth plan, then they need to go through a growth plan amendment, which would modify what's being proposed from the 2007 plan to what they are proposing today. In addition, in that growth plan, maybe to answer some more questions, it extensively identifies where we want to see sort of more regional parks, where we want to see regional bikeways for connectivity throughout the areas that we will grow into. And as we go through our site plan process and our platting process and our zoning process, that's one thing we take into account to be able to identify if we need to be pushing for a bike trail through here or getting the park district more involved in acquiring a park in the region. Now, granted, it's a 2007 growth plan, and it probably needs to be updated and probably needs to be put in our work plan here in the next few years. But that helps sort of guide us in making some of these recommendations.
Okay. Any other public comment? If not, I will close the public hearing. Any discussion, or are we ready to act, Commissioners? Rocky.
Okay, do you want to take another public comment?
Oh, okay.
One more comment, please. I have 2 friends of mine that they live near Golden Valley. They live in Eagle Point. And I asked them just recently, what do they think about this rezoning close to their neighborhood? And they said that they don't live in that neighborhood, but east of it, there is a subdivision where there's a lot of people angry about that they keep rezoning this area. And they're very vocal, people from the subdivision and Crawford Cove and also in Eagle Point. When are you going to start to listen to the people that live there, that they do not want to have rezoning and to have multi-dwellings next to single-family homes? Can't we just keep the area single-family homes and let the developers develop within those parameters? And so if they want to develop, then it should be single-family homes. I guess I just want to see us to have more single-family homes and more green space, and look at just look at that. We need to make more consideration before we approve every application.
I'd just like to say something. Isn't it the goal of the city to provide housing for a variety of different situations? The single-family homes, the more affluent developments, also the townhouses, the apartments, and access to those parks and greenways for everyone? And that it isn't just creating an area of exclusivity of a certain kind of housing, which is called ghettoization?
Want me to do that, or you want to talk about it, sir?
I would say in each and every decision we make recommendations for, we're analyzing all aspects of that and comparing it with the policies and procedures that we have in place to either recommend an approval or denial. And one huge factor of that is the diversification of housing appropriately throughout the city.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Where's Eagle Point in reference?
Hang on.
Awesome.
Commissioner. if you just let me zoom in here, that's why I brought this up. Just give me a second here. There are several Eagle neighborhoods here. And that was platted before I got here. Mr. Williams, this is Eagle Point, right? This area? Yes, area?
Correct.
Okay. This area here. And so as our testifier alluded to, this is Crofton Coves over here. This is Bison Meadows. This is Eagle Point. This is another development by Eagle Ridge Development, and then Davies High School, and then these are the Golden Valley developments up here. Golden Valley 1, 2, 3, and 4 is off the chart up there.
All right. Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any pardon me, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Schneider?
Aye.
Shirley?
Yes.
Tassa?
Aye.
Morgan?
Aye.
Gunkelman?
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to number 4, a hearing on the application requesting a zoning change from SR2, single-family dwelling residential, to SR3, single dwelling residential on lots 25 through 32, South Haven subdivision. Donald.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, lots happening west of 25th Street South there. So we were on the far south end of the west side of that street. Now we're on the far north end. This is 64th Avenue South, 25th Street South here. This South Haven subdivision was platted in 1964 before it was part of the city. There are a few residences here, about a half dozen residents, and we do have one of the residents here with us this morning, or this afternoon now. One of the new residents there with us. These properties are owned by Stan Ryland of Ryland Development Corporation, and he's proposing a zone change for these. This area is zoned SR2, which is a single-family residential district. He wants to upzone it a little bit to SR3, which is also a single-dwelling residential district. This property, actually, we need this more slightly, and we're slightly ahead of our map here. This is actually zoned for SR4. That's Golden Valley 4th, which hasn't been added to our map yet. But this is Golden Valley 4th, which is a single-family residential development. And this is what that property looks like. Here we're standing on 65th. The 65th Avenue South is platted on that South Haven subdivision, but it's not actually there yet. The city will be installing it this summer. And then this is a little levee here, I guess, along 75th. And you're standing on the levee, just, again, what the undeveloped lots look like. And then this tree row here indicates the backyards of the residential lots there. And so, again, we're just looking at a zone change from SR2 to SR3 here, which provides slightly more flexibility in development. Mr. Ryland actually is not with us today. He couldn't make it today. He was here yesterday. But Mr. Eunice, he said, can represent him here because they often work together on these projects, although this is Mr. Ryland's particular project. So John may have some comments, and I know we do have one resident here who also may have some comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any questions for Donald, commissioners? Seeing none. John, Eunice, do you want to speak to this at all?
Yeah, I think I will. I talked with Stan a bit about this both early on in the process as we were going through the platting process on Golden Valley 4th. And he had mentioned that he's met with a handful of the adjacent neighbors and kind of discussed with them what his plans were. This is, if you look at the growth plan, I believe this area actually calls out for a little more intense use on the residential side, but knowing that there's that there are single-family houses both on the north and south. He wasn't real interested in going with a real high-density development. That's why he's proposing the SR3 as opposed to doing any MR zone district in that area.
And that point that Mr. Eunice stated is explained in your staff report. He's eligible to go higher, but it's more of a sort of a transitional zone.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Eunice? Well, we got him on.
Donald, I'll just say thanks for pulling up this map because it is helpful to see if you have line work for the.
Yeah. So what has happened here, just to refresh the commissioner's memory, this is Golden Valley 1, which I believe was platted in 2013. This is 2, 3, and 4. So it's all platted now except this piece here. This actually does have lots in it, but it takes us a while to get all that line work in. And we just recently approved this at the City Commission in the last month or so. So these all do have lot lines in them, pretty much similar to this here. I believe there's one larger lot on the corner here. And so that, completes the development of this area. And then, as you recall, the Selkirk Plat is across here, across Drain 53. So, so that we try to keep it current, but there's a process we have to go through to add all the details.
And I can say, living out there, there's a lot of Golden Valley homes going up. There's a lot of Madeline Meadows. Bison Meadows is getting It's really thriving out there. So a lot of interest of people wanting to live out there. So
our aerial photos are a little, we only get them done every couple of years. So there's, as Commissioner Tass indicates, there's much more actually here than is shown on this photograph. We don't have real-time drone photography yet. So I don't know that we will ever.
You'll have to get one of those down for our. All right. See no more other questions for the applicant. I'll open it up to public hearing.
Hello, my name is Adam Hollingsworth. My family and I purchased a home off of 64th Avenue just a few months ago. One of the many things that attracted us to that area was the open, relaxed kind of country feel, which reminded us a lot of a country home we used to own before coming to Fargo. And we thought with COVID, maybe the 64th Avenue paving project might wait a little while because we actually like the gravel, but obviously that's going through, and there's certainly advantages along with that too. So I just had some questions. I was a little bit confused in looking at some of the materials here that were mailed. There is actually 9 different lots identified on the city's plan.
25 through 32 should be 7.
Right, and then Stan Ryland had visited with us.
Yeah.
And he had identified 8 different lots, and so I was just kind of
No,
curious.
it would be this. Well, 8. Yeah. So 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 is 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it should be 8. Yes.
All right. And then I just visiting with various different contractors in the area, it sounded like the development was going to be moving from the south to the north. You were identifying Golden Valley 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
I'm assuming that the number is following in the development order as well. So Golden Valley 1 would be developed before 2 and 3. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me go back to that map, sir. So yeah, Golden Valley. The numbering of additions is really a chronological thing. Generally, they do follow along development-wise, but I believe Mr. Eunice, who's developed many of these properties, could answer your question in more detail. John, did you hear the gentleman's question?
Yeah, I did. So Golden Valley First was the first one out there. Golden Valley Second Edition has already been completed, and there's houses going up. We actually have Golden Valley Fourth Edition with construction starting, I believe, this week for the improvements of those lots. So we kind of skipped over that Golden Valley Third, and our intent is to have that one done next year.
That's this one, sir.
Okay, I see. I had seen that there was some surveying work going on to lay out the 65th Avenue. Is that primarily because of the South Haven development that Stan Ryland is talking about, and then that Golden Valley 4 will come in later, or?
Maybe turn that over to our city engineer.
Yeah, so 65th Avenue is a platted right of way today. And so that construction is going to happen with the infrastructure going into the south. So we are extending that in to the First or Second Street in is how far it will come in, because they're actually putting the infrastructure on the two streets just west of 25th Street to the south.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't have any other questions. Just was curious as to what the plans were.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, sir, as we discussed, you'll also receive another hearing notice for the city commission hearing, which will probably be in early August, late July or early August, and you'll have another opportunity to be part of a public hearing if you wish. Thank you.
Any further public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, start from there.
Any additional discussion? Are we ready to act?
I'll make the motion to accept the findings and recommendations of staff as outlined in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Don. With a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Sherling?
Yes.
Tassa? Aye. Morgan?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Dunkelman?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Moving on to item number 5. Kylie.
Item number 5 is titled Timber Parkway 2nd, 3rd, and 4th editions. The applicant Paces Lodging is seeking a zone change to repeal and reestablish a conditional overlay. The subject property is located at 4935 and 5081 Timber Parkway South, 3439, 3375, and 3400 James Way South, and 3360, 3401, 3430, and 3485 Jacks Way South. The existing conditional overlay on the property, which is number 5130, was established in 2018 and was specific to the proposed outlet mall development that never came to fruition on these lots. The applicant is proposing to remove the language specific to the proposed outlet mall development and replace it with standard design language that can be found in other conditional overlays throughout the city. The applicant originally applied to prohibit the use of Vehicle Services Limited, as shown on page 3 of your draft conditional overlay in your packet. They would now like to allow that use, which is consistent with other conditional overlays in the city. Chris Mack is here representing Paces Lodging, and he can speak more to that if you have some questions. Staff has not received any inquiries regarding the property. Based on the zone change criteria, staff is recommending approval of this application. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for staff?
This isn't about the exact issue, but I was wondering if you have any information about what happened to the commercial property, the mall.
I do not, but Chris Mack might have some more information on that.
Okay.
With Paces.
Okay, I'll invite Chris to fill us in.
Good evening, Commissioners. So your question was regarding the mall and why that went away?
Yeah, just general interest.
We were trying to do something with the outlet mall and the retail kind of with online and competition the outlet mall, we couldn't get the users, type thing. Now we have a lot of other, as you can see, a lot of other movement and activity going on down there. So this will help us, like, well, we're trying to change trash enclosures, screening and stuff. It was very specific to like mall use, like you see at West Acres where there's a large fencing. And we would like to go to more of a traditional or consistency of what other ordinance are in the land development that we've used in other developments like Blue Water Creek, stuff like that. So.
This is a residential development?
Nope, it's commercial.
Okay.
Yep. I guess the large long property, that is the property where Sweet Shots is going to go. It's a golf driving range facility similar to like a Top Golf. And then we're working on other users for the other commercial lots. So.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? As long as we got them up there. All right, I'll open it for public comment. Anyone from the public wish to address this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional discussion? Are we ready to act? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion as to accept the recommendations of staff as outlined in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We've got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Sherling?
Yes.
Tassa?
Aye.
Morgan?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Gunkelman?
Aye, motion carries. Hearing on application requesting a plat of Turf Tamers addition. Maggie.
Good afternoon. Item 6 on your agenda is titled Turf Tamers Edition. The subject property is located at 4170 and 4200 24th Avenue North. It's currently undeveloped. The applicant is Brian Pattengale from Houston, and he is requesting a minor subdivision plat, which would replat 2 existing lots into 2 new lots. Access to each lot will come from 24th Avenue North. The property is currently zoned limited industrial, and it will remain that way. Notices of the replat have been sent out to property owners within 300 feet, and we have received no comments or concerns. So at this time, staff finds that all criteria have been met, and we are recommending approval of the plat. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and again, Brian is also available for questions today.
All right, any questions for Maggie? All right. Any questions for Brian, representing the applicant? All right, I'll open it for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this application? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional discussion? For commissioners, we're ready to act.
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Morgan?
Aye.
Sherling?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Tassa?
Aye.
Gunkelman?
Aye, motion carries. All right, Aaron's going to give us, we're not going to get the full spiel today on the Land Development Code diagnostic, but Aaron's going to give us a little update, and at a later date, we will kind of get a consensus of the commissioners to try to get together for something similar to a brown bag to go through some of the findings of the diagnostics. Aaron, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. And just in terms of a quick update on what would have been item E1 on the Planning Commission agenda, as was mentioned, we were anticipating having the consultant give a brief overview of the Land Development Code diagnostic, which was included in your meeting packet, as well as leading the Planning Commission in some discussion on the diagnostic report and some next steps in terms of the Ldc Diagnostic Study in general. However, with the continuation of the meeting, we weren't able to get the consultants, in line for the continuation of this meeting here today. And so what we'll be looking to do is get a couple of dates or a handful of options from the consulting team in terms of what works for them. We're looking at most likely the week of July 20th for some type of it would be no more than probably 1 hour or less. Just a quick virtual discussion with the Planning Commission in order for the consultant team to present their findings and lead that discussion. And so you'll likely be receiving an email from the planning department within the next couple of days, just trying to sort out what date works for everybody. So more to come on that shortly, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have in the meantime.
Any questions for Aaron?
Looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yes.
And you said it was virtual, right?
Yes, the consultant team, they're not traveling due to COVID, and so it will be a virtual interaction. We will be using the PEXIP software, so there is the potential, if anybody does want to come here in person, I believe that will likely be an option, but we'll communicate that further via email. We'll also be sending out an amended news media release to others that were notified of the time and place of the meeting, so that they can also provide comments if anybody else from the public wishes to do so.
Aaron, just a quick question. Is this probably more for information for everybody. Is this also bringing together some of the information we're gathering from the Fargo core neighborhood study too? I take it some of the information is mutually exclusive between the two.
Yeah, so for the Ldc Diagnostic meeting that we'll be looking to arrange, it will be solely focused on the Ldc Diagnostic Study. There's not going to be any discussion of the core neighborhoods plan. It is our intent that those two studies would inform each other, and we have been sharing documents and information as it gets generated between both of those project teams. And so there is likely to be, some degree of overlap between the two studies.
Thank you.
But the discussion will focus on the Ldc Diagnostic specifically.
Okay. Any other questions for Aaron? All right, I'll take a motion to.
Question out
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Just wondering, for those of us who aren't familiar with the process, if you could give us just a nutshell overview of what this Ldc Diagnostic is.
Sure, certainly. So in quick summary, the purpose of this project, or the Ldc Diagnostic Study, is first to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the current land development code or the city's development regulations. And then secondly, to identify, to kind of build consensus around some next steps, if you will, in terms of how to address any deficiencies that are identified during the diagnostic process. And so it's really, you can think of it as maybe a first step towards a more comprehensive set of updates potentially to the land development code. The current land development code was adopted in 1998, so it's been a while since there's been any comprehensive review or comprehensive update to the zoning regulations. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can make a note just on future agendas if we're using terminology to spell it out, instead of LDC. It might just be helpful.
Okay. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.